Hello, everyone. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment saying where you're from and when you watched. That way, YouTube will continue to show you stories like this. Now, let's get started. Asterisk, that night, I stood alone in front of room 209 of an old hotel on the old yellow street. I only planned to stay for the night and then go to another city because it was starting to rain. I chose this hotel simply because it was close to the road. From the outside, it looked normal, but when I went inside, I felt a chill in the long corridor, and I only heard the sound of my shoes hitting the ground and the sound of rain hitting the window. This old yellow building did not have many guests, only Mr. Latangia, about 10 years old, and a cleaner standing in the far corner. My room, 209, had a small double bed and a large mirror on the opposite side of the bed. I felt a bit uncomfortable because of its unreasonable position, making the man on the bed look in and immediately see his own image in the mirror as if someone was there, looking back at me when I entered the dark room and turned on the light. The yellow light shone on the mirror, making it reflect a faint light streak. I thought it was dust, but when I got closer to check, I saw a streak on the mirror surface, the size of someone's fingertip on the dust layer. I reached out my hand to wipe it, but it was still as smooth as it had been before. I fell asleep after a long day of traveling, but late at night, I was awakened by the sound of water dripping. I thought it was the water in the bathroom running. I walked in and found everything was fine, nothing unusual, but when I turned around, I was shocked. The image in the mirror did not resemble me. I stood in front of the mirror, my hand still holding a towel to wipe my face, but in the mirror, I felt nothing. I looked more carefully and saw that the face of the person in the mirror was not exactly my face. He had a darker face and a very fragile smile, but it made me shiver because it was not my bride eye turned back to the back. There was only space. No one, no sound, only the sound of rain outside the window. Then I turned back to the mirror again. The image disappeared. Only me stood there. Breathing without saying a word, I reached out and touched the cold mirror surface. A feeling spread. From the tip of my finger to my back, I decided to turn off the light and go to sleep. But that night, my eyes could not focus. I always had the feeling that someone was watching me in the dark. I heard the sound of water dripping again, but this time it did not come from the mind, but from the mirror itself. I looked in the dark. I saw a wet mark on the mirror surface, and in it was a mark like a human shadow. The next morning, I told Mr. Latan. He just smiled and said the room's mirror had been changed many times because the guests kept complaining, but everyone said something different. Some said they saw a shadow of someone standing behind them. Some said the mirror didn't reflect properly. When I asked why they didn't change the mirror, he just said the previous owner of this hotel was a collector of antiques. He was very fond of that mirror because it was his family heirloom, but he had disappeared from the room many years ago. I felt cold in my heart, but didn't want to believe in nonsense. I decided to stay one more night just to prove to myself that there was nothing to fear. On Monday night, I lay in bed, looking in the mirror again. The light from the door to the hallway flickered in like a knife in my shadow. This time I saw something different. The thing in the mirror wasn't still. He was leaning up to touch into the mirror from the other side. I don't know if it's a dream or reality, but when I looked closely, his finger touched the place where I touched me the day before, and from the mirror water started to drip and ran down the floor like hot drops. Swam and always felt someone's breath behind me, but when I turned back, there was only the cold room. I ran to the hotel hallway, but everyone was silent. I hugged me and went to the door of the hotel, but no one answered. The hotel seemed abandoned. I looked back at the room. The light in the mirror was still flickering, as if someone was waiting for me to come back. I decided to put it away and go out. I ran without looking back, but in the rain, I heard a soft laugh coming from behind, like the laugh in the mirror. The night before, I didn't know if it was the sound of the wind or something else. He's following me, but I know one thing for sure: I will never look in the hotel mirror again. A month later, I returned to the small scene on the Golden Road. Many people argued that because that hotel was rumored that someone had disappeared in room 209. I tried to forget everything, but what happened that night, no one believed, because there was no evidence. Only those images still haunted me every night in my sleep. I still saw the mirror dripping water and a person looking at me from the other side with a cold face. This time I returned, not because I wanted to explore, but just to confirm that it was all just my imagination. The hotel was still there, using the old name. The new hotel owner was a younger man named Mr. Thomas. He said he had just bought this place and wanted to renovate it to recreate in a few months. I asked him about room 209. He smiled and said it was still there, but no one had lived there, because many people felt that the place was too haughty. Asked permission to go in and see him. I thought for a while, then agreed when I opened the door and walked in the cold. Feeling immediately returned. Everything was as quiet as the day I left the bed, still there for my father to sleep there. And the mirror was still on the wall. I touched my hand to the surface. It was cold and had a thin layer of mist, like a ghost. I crawled under the wall, then turned back to ask Mr. Thomas if anyone had been here recently. He said no one had been in the hotel for many months, except him. And though I asked about the history of the mirror, he said he heard the owner of the hotel had disappeared in this room, but no one knew the reason, only that all the rooms had been locked for many days that night. I stayed in another room on the floor above to rest, because it was raining again. The rain was hitting the glass, making me unable to sleep. I opened the door to look down the hallway. The light was yellow. Then I saw the door 209. I knew clearly that at this time no one was allowed in there, but the door was still open. I felt a cold chill from the hallway coming towards me. I moved closer and saw a light coming from inside the room. In that light, I clearly saw a figure standing in front of the mirror with its back turned. The figure moved slowly, as if looking at itself in the mirror. I ran down the stairs and called Mr. Thomas, but no one answered. I took the flashlight on the turntable and ran back to room 209. The door was closed. I knocked hard, but there was no answer. I turned down and saw the door of another room was also open, as if someone had just passed. I went back to my room. The door was closed and tried to sleep, but near dawn, I was woken up by a soft knocking sound, as if someone was knocking lightly on the glass. I walked over and looked out, but only saw darkness and rain. Then I turned. Then I saw on the mirror of my room there was a word written in something like water or breath. I came closer. I saw the word appeared more clearly. It said, I saw him. Then, when he saw May, stood still. I didn't dare to move my eyes. I knew clearly that word wasn't there when I entered the room for the first time. I ran out to the hallway. Again, everything was quiet. I hugged, and there was only a sound like rain crying outside the window. I turned around and saw the mirror in the hallway flickering, a shadow of a person standing behind me. Then everything turned off. I don't remember anything anymore. When I woke up the next morning, Mr. Thomas said he saw me lying in the hallway when it was light. He said no one was in the room all night, and the camera only caught me walking out to the hallway, then everything after that, until he saw me lying on the ground. I looked up at the mirror on the wall and saw my face pale. My heart stopped and I breathed heavily. But what scared me was that the person in that face was no longer Miss Sense. Then I have not returned to that hotel. But every night in the mirror of my house, I always see a trace of moisture appearing slightly on my face, like a reminder that someone is watching me from the other world. The mirror's face never completely disappears, and in my heart I always hear a voice reminding me that I saw him, and then it was his turn to see me. After leaving that hotel, I thought I would get used to all the unpleasant things. I returned to my house in the city, a small house with windows overlooking a quiet park. I packed my luggage and tried to return to my normal life. But since that night, I saw the mirror in the house start to change its light as if it had life. When I turned off all the lights, the mirror in the living room still reflected a yellow light even though there was no light source nearby. I thought it was just an illusion, but for many consecutive nights, that thing repeated. On the fourth night, I was sleeping when a soft knock woke me up. I opened my eyes and looked around the house. I saw that the shadow in the mirror was not the same as me. Each time I looked, like the person in the mirror waited for more than a second before following. I looked carefully at the face of the person in the mirror and saw that the face was no longer the same. By half a second later, I got closer and saw inside that was a hallway, and a figure standing at the end of the hallway. Was startled and ran out of the living room and turned off all the mirrors, so I hugged myself. I felt like someone was watching me from inside the house. I turned all the mirrors back on for a few days, but after that, every time I walked past, I saw on the surface of my face a wet stain, as if someone had touched it. After a week, I received an envelope. In the envelope with no sender's name, only the address of the old hotel, and the owner. I knew he saw me then. It was his turn to see me. I was surprised because I thought someone was playing a game, but the letter was written in ancient calligraphy, exactly like the letter I saw on the mirror that night. I pulled out the envelope, and inside there was only a small piece of mirror that had been torn apart the corner, and on the surface of the mirror there was a little bit of blood early in the morning. I threw it in the trash, but I know it didn't disappear because I heard the sound of the trash being opened in the middle of the night, as if someone was searching for that mirror piece. The next day, I took the big mirror in the house and put it down and put it in a corner. I thought it would all end, but late at night, I heard the sound of water falling on the floor. When I got closer, I saw the floor was wet, and from the corner, I raised a white mist that touched the surface of the mirror and spread out all over the space. I felt cold on my back. A small voice from somewhere echoed back like a call. I said out of the mirror, "I gave you a long time ago." Ran outside. It was raining heavily. I stood under the porch in the rain and looked out the window. I saw the light gradually increase, and a figure slowly walked in the house. I didn't know who it was, but that person was walking to the mirror and stood still, staring into the eyes, as if waiting for someone. I knew if I stayed, I would see something I shouldn't see. The next day, I remembered my friend named David. I called to tell him everything about the wedding and said it was probably just stress, but he agreed I would come to my house to stay for a night to give me peace of mind. That night, my brother slept on the chair in the living room. I slept on the sofa near the door. I slept for a while, then the sound of running water woke me up. I opened my eyes and saw David standing in front of the mirror staring at it. I called him, but he didn't answer. I walked closer. I saw the person in the mirror wasn't David, but May was frozen. I couldn't move for a second. I saw the person in the mirror laughing, then put my hand up to touch my face. From the other side, a streak of water spread out cold, and I saw David lying on the floor with a pale face, as if he was no longer breathing. I screamed and ran out of the house, only to be spun around in the sound of rain and the sound of mirrors silently increasing. The darkness after that night, no one saw David again, and when the police came, I said there was only a streak of water on the floor and a small piece of mirror I didn't know how to explain, just said that something in the mirror was calling me back to the hotel, and I knew one day I would have to face it again. From the day David disappeared, I became a different person. I could not sleep at night. The sound of rain became like the sound of someone's voice outside the window. Cold then turned into a soft knocking sound, as if someone was using their finger to knock on the glass every night. I heard it more clearly and knew it was coming from the mirror. I had chosen on the floor of the hospital. The knocking sound still echoed, as if someone below was calling my name in the night. I appeared on the mirror. A streak of water ran down like a tear, and then ran in a motion. I saw him then. It was his turn to see me. Agunai started to count all the mirrors in the house. I lifted up the mirror. I thought if I didn't see it, I would be at peace. But the afternoon, after it started to rain, I saw on the mirror a small wet streak, and drops of water fell to the floor. My family took a towel to wipe, but the stain did not disappear, but spread, as if someone was breathing from the mirror. I told another friend named Emma, who intended to come help me clean the house and stay for a night so that I would not be alone. I was so nervous, but did not dare to play when she came. I told her that she was not allowed to look in the mirror in the house, and she laughed and said I was hallucinating, but I saw clearly the worry in her eyes. I turned off everything except for a single toe on the table at midnight. The rain was falling steadily on the roof. Emma was sleeping on the sofa, and I was sleeping on the chair next to me. I heard the sound of wood, at first light, then increasing. I opened my eyes and looked around, but did not see anyone. Emma was still silent, but I saw the shadow of a person in the mirror on the wall, looking out to the floor. Although the mirror was covered, I walked over to see the layer of skin was sticking down bit by bit, as if someone was sticking it from inside. I stood still and knew clearly. A voice whispered my name. I ran to wake up Emma, but she didn't open her eyes, still as if she was sleeping very deeply. Got under the shoulder and saw the mirror was still red, but the face was no longer cold as before. I saw it was dark, and from inside the face appeared a large black shadow that took the shape of a person. A hand reached out from the face and touched my shoulder. I screamed back and forth and saw on my hand a wet mark like a cold head. I looked again. The shadow disappeared, but on the face of the mirror now, there was a wet mark like someone had just glued their hand. Next morning, I told Emma. She didn't believe me. She said I was too stressed. I asked her to stay one more night, but she said she had to leave early morning because she had work. I agreed, and when I came back that morning, when she was packing her luggage, I heard her scream. From I ran into the room and saw Emma standing in front of the small mirror on the wall, smiling, her face pale. I called her name, but she didn't respond. When I got close, the mirror fell to pieces and Emma fell to the floor. I called an ambulance, but when the paramedics arrived, she said she had no pulse. She was just in shock and breathing very weakly. I stayed by her side until she opened her eyes and looked at me. Then I realized the person in the mirror wasn't her. It was something else trying to get out. Then her eyes, her last words were cut off. When the light came to the room, the light went out. From that day on, I didn't sleep at home anymore. I moved to another apartment. I left all the mirrors, but sometimes in the mirror of the new building I lived in, I still saw a blurry figure standing behind me, then disappearing in a flash. I didn't know if it was a shirt. The dream was a warning that one day the mirror would find its way back to me in the dark. After Emma was taken to the hospital, I left that house. I thought it was all over. One rented a new apartment on the upper floor of a modern building near the city center. Nothing to do with the hotel. No mirror could get close to me. I thought I could live like a normal person, but after only a few days, everything was back to normal. The first night I arrived at the new building, it was raining. I was sleeping. I heard the sound of water dripping from the bedroom. I opened the door. I saw on the sink there was a wet mark like a handprint I touched. I stood for a while, then wiped it off, but when I got closer, I saw clearly on the watermark a face of a person who had a light from the room. Then everything became gloomy. The next day, I went to work on the road. The sky became gloomy, but when I opened the apartment, I saw the light in the house was caught. I was sure that before leaving, I had turned it all off. I was walking slowly to work, then the light went out in a split second. All the sky into the darkness, only the light from the outside of the mirror came in. I walked close to the mirror and clearly saw a figure standing behind me. In the mirror, that person smiled. Very lightly, but there was nothing human in that smile. Only something cold and clear. I turned around, but there was no one from that night when it rained. I heard a sound of knocking coming from somewhere. Not a mirror, because in this apartment there was no mirror except the mirror of the bedroom I used concrete to cover the mirror, but the sound of knocking still did not disappear, only became deeper, as if coming from my mind. I told this story to the guard of the building. He laughed and said it was probably running water in him, but I saw the net clearly appear on his face when I talked about the Marori started to have recurring dreams. I was in the living room of the hotel, looking into that mirror. In the mirror was another world, a long hallway, and a shadow walking towards me. Every time I woke up, I saw a wet mark on the glass right in front of my eyes, as if someone had touched it last Thursday night. I decided to turn on the camera to record everything. I left it facing the glass and then went to sleep around 3 a.m. I was woken up by a noise. I turned on the camera to check it again. I clearly saw the light in the room gradually increase, and from inside the mirror, a shadow appeared. I saw that person walk to the bed. I fell asleep, stopped, and looked down at the person on the bed, then smiled coldly. The camera light flickered, then turned off. I didn't see anything until I woke up the next morning. On the mirror, there was a line written with a fingertip. I saw him. I started to lose sleep completely. My eyes were dark, and my eyes were clear like other people. People at the office noticed me change. They said I always looked into the empty space, as if searching for someone. I tried sleeping pills, but it didn't work, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw a shadow of a person in the mirror, just standing still, but always looking at meth. 10th night, I heard the sound of gong again. This time, it was from the wall behind my head. I put on my headphones, and clearly it was Emma's voice. Then I saw him. Then it was his turn to see me. I didn't dare to sleep anymore. I left the house running in the rain, but when I entered the mirror, I saw a shadow of a person following me, and in that moment, I understood that the spell of the mirror had never ended. The food has taken hold of me, like a shadow I can't shake off. Since that night, I could no longer sleep. Every time I opened my eyes, I saw the old mirror and that person's shadow. I moved to another place, farther away, but nothing changed. The sound of footsteps still appeared in the night, and the feeling of someone standing behind me became familiar. I began to think that maybe it was following me, not only in the house, but also everywhere I went. One rainy night, I was walking across a yellow street with only a few people on the street, and suddenly I saw my reflection in the glass of an old shop. It did not resemble me. The person in the reflection seemed to have faded away. The face was pale, and the eyes behind me. I turned away quickly, but from then on, I knew for sure that thing did not need a mirror to survive anymore. It had escaped. The next morning, I went to work at the office. My co-workers noticed that I was tired and asked me if I was okay. I laughed it off, but in the tall building, I clearly saw the reflection next to me was another person, not the one in the room. I faced it and saw it laugh loudly, then disappear. I started reading many articles about similar cases and found out that the hotel I was talking about had been demolished many years ago after a fire of unknown cause. There was a rumor that the mirror was made from a special type of glass used in ancient rituals to keep the soul of the deceased. I realized that I was being linked to it as a substitute. I met a person named Laura, a paranormal researcher. She agreed to meet me when she heard me tell a story. She had heard about the mirror. It was called a negative mirror between two worlds. There was an explanation that when someone looked goated at night and see the picture does not look like me, then that person has been chosen as a bridge for the other side. I asked, is there any way to cut off the link? Can only cut the link by returning to the beginning. Hotels have been destroyed. I do not know. How can you show me a picture taken before the hotel was destroyed in the picture? The mirror is still standing in room 209, and there is a shadow of a person standing behind the person taking the picture. I looked closely and for the first time realized that the person in the shadow is me. I was so cold, my back felt like there was a cold coming from inside me. That night, I had a dream. I was standing in room 209. The mirror in front of me was all dark. Then slowly appeared clearly the face of a man who looked exactly like me. The only difference was, he smiled strangely. He said, I had waited for a long time, and now it's my turn to change, and then opened my hand. As I came in, I was startled awake. My whole body was sweating cold, but when I looked around the room, all the windows were covered with a layer of mist, like in a dream. I decided to go back to the old hotel to see if there was anything left, but the road had been mostly turned into a car park, but in the northeast corner there was still a piece of the image left. I lifted it up a bit and saw a piece of mirror behind the layer of dirt. I felt it in my hand, cold, and heard a voice whispering that it was time. Then I let go and ran out of there, but the laughter still echoed in the wind when I got home. I saw on the glass of the bedroom window there was a tear running down and a letter writing. I saw him then. I knew there was nothing I could do to stop it anymore. I could only close my eyes and end everything with how do I get back to where it all began. I returned to the old town on a gloomy afternoon. The yellow road and the mist seemed to stretch to the hotel at the end of the street. Only a skeleton of the old building remained, tilted and in disrepair. But what made me imagine was the office building with room 209 on the second floor that had not been destroyed. I did not understand why it was still standing in the middle of the sky, so I climbed over the fence, set up the camera in my hand. The small mirror I found last time, a cold feeling spread throughout my body, as if someone was waiting for me to turn back. When I stepped inside, the smell of dust and old plaster rose up. The smell of light from the window was destroyed and shone on the wall, making everything seem to be coming back to life. I walked along the old hallway towards room 209. I followed the sound of footsteps, echoing as if someone was following me. But when I backed to only the shadow on the wall and swaying like a living creature, room 209 opened. The sound of glue, and inside everything was still, as if the mirror in the middle of the wall was not dented. The bed had turned into a rock. I stepped closer to the mirror, feeling fragile, the small mirror in my hand placed on the surface. It was cold as ice. Then a tear stain appeared on the surface, and a voice echoed, I saw him. Then I couldn't breathe, my heart was pounding. I looked into the mirror, saw the other room was not devastated, but still intact, as before, running new light inside, but no one, just a shadow of a person standing in front of the mirror on the other side. The face was pale, and the woman smiled. Sweat. I dared to take a step further and held the mirror, cold face shining. Then everything, I was stuck inside. I saw myself standing in a living room, the other room 209, but the whole thing was still there. No dust, and the mirror in front of me clearly reflected my face. I had a new feeling, like it was real. I turned around and saw someone in the hallway looking at me through the slit of his eyes. He looked very familiar. I realized it was David. My long-lost friend. I knocked on the door and called his name, but that person didn't answer, just turned away and disappeared into the darkness. I ran out into the hallway, but all the shadows were gone. I hugged every light source. Only the mirror in the room projected a dream light. I knew I was stuck in its world. Then, every step I took in the hotel felt like I was in a dream. I saw Emma standing in the corner of the hallway, smiling softly and then flying into the air, when a voice echoed everywhere. This was a place where there was no smile, only a beginning. I, looking at the mirror again, clearly saw that I was in my room in the apartment. Now behind was the mirror on the wall. I reached out to touch it and saw the person in the mirror doing the opposite movement, then reached out to the cold mirror touching my hand from the other side. I was jerked out of bed. My body fell down, so the house returned to reality. Everything was quiet, only the small mirror in my hand was broken into hundreds of pieces, then disappeared into the... I breathed out, thinking that everything was over, but when I looked at the face of the phone that was turned off, I saw my reflection smiling coldly. The eyes behind me, I felt a wave of coldness all over my body and knew that the mirror was only temporary for me. It was still there at the moment I needed it most, to come back and catch me again. From the day I left the hotel, I returned home with the feeling that everything had ended, but not long after I realized I no longer saw my reflection standing still like before. Every time I passed by the glass of a store or on the water, I felt like the sky stopped and then moved away at a different pace from me, but it was just a fleeting moment, like a shadow. I told myself that it was just a new feeling, but after a few nights it became clearer. On Tuesday night, I opened my eyes in the middle of the night and saw on the black screen of the TV a faint light, like a dark spot from the mirror. I came closer and saw in it was my face, but it didn't look like me. Dark eyes and a woman laughing. I didn't have time to react. The screen turned off my chest. I was cold. I ran outside. It was pouring rain, and I saw in the glass of the building a figure of a person looking at me no matter how long I looked. It was still silent, without moving. The next day, I went to see Laura. The person who helped me the last time said that my connection with the mirror had not been cut off. When I saw myself in a projection that was not the same as me, that meant a part of my soul was still stuck there. If I didn't cut it off in time, it would replace me completely. I asked how to cut it off. There was only one way to break the mirror and face the person inside before it could come out. I returned to my apartment. All the doors were covered with a layer of fog. I took a hammer and broke every mirror in the house, but every time I hit the mirror, it showed a cold light. I felt humiliated. My head and a soft laugh echoed throughout the room. I broke everything, but when it came to the last mirror on the mirror, it was clearly moving. I saw him, and I didn't dare to answer. I just stood there looking. In that moment, the mirror began to vibrate, and the reflection in it changed. I saw clearly that I was in another room. It was room 209 of the old hotel. Everything was the same as before. I saw David sitting in the corner of the room. His eyes were closed, but there was a shadow behind him. The mirror seemed to be laughing at me, calling my name, but no sound came out of his mouth. Then everything started to fade away. I was sucked into the mirror again. The feeling of falling from nothingness was there when I opened my eyes. I saw myself standing in a room that was exactly like the room I was in. Everything was upside down. The light was in the opposite direction. The clock was spinning, and everything was moving slowly. I realized that I was on the other side of the mirror, where my soul was held back. I ran to the door, but couldn't dream anything like I was passive. I looked in the mirror and saw another me standing on the other side of the world. That person smiled at me and then put his hand on the mirror's face. That person wasn't me anymore, but a version that had completely replaced me. I knocked on the door and knocked with all my might, but no one heard, only the sound of rain outside and the sound of the mirror in the real world's time here no longer had any meaning. I saw myself wandering between the endless mirror reflections. Every mirror had a version of me in it, looking out at everyone else, but only I was stuck. I saw Emma, David, and many others. They were all there, but silent like shadows. No sound, only one thing echoed in my head. The laugh of the mirror responding to my heartbeat. I didn't. I don't know how much time has passed, but whoever looks in that mirror can see me standing behind them just for a moment, but all I know is that one day someone will look longer than a second, and then I will be forgiven. I don't know how much time has passed since I was stuck on the other side. Completely blind, as if unchanged, but still no longer the same world that everyone else stuck here just wandered aimlessly, not speaking or listening, just looking into the mirror with a cold smile. I could see the world so completely blind in the mirror, but couldn't touch it. Everything was far away. Just a thin layer, but not everyone could see me. Only those who were connected to the mirror could see one day. I saw my version of myself in the real world, living my life, going to work, talking to everyone. Everyone didn't notice the change, but I saw it was not like me in every way, just its eyes were dark and its smile never faded. Every time someone else turned away, it looked into the mirror and smiled. I on the other side, like a whisper. I typed into the mirror, but no one heard, only that smiling woman replied. That night, I saw it standing in front of the old mirror in the new apartment. It raised its hand to touch the face of the person in the mirror, and from behind its back appeared my shadow. I knew that it was pulling someone else into this world, like it did to me. I called its name in a circle, then slowly the mirror face turned cold. The sky opened. I saw Emma appear standing behind me, smiling and pointing to my other side, then saying, "Miss me, you have been replaced every day that passed." I saw it become more like me, both in the way it walked and spoke, but the only difference was in its eyes. There was no emotion. My loved one started to speak. I had changed, became colder and less talkative. I could only stand looking through the mirror somewhere else. That is something else, not me. I tried to find a way to escape this world, but every mirror only led me to one room, room 209. In the room, everything was the same the first night. I went to the mirror, still standing in the middle of the wall. I walked round, looking at everything more strange on the wall. There were dream objects. I saw images. Then I reached out to touch the cold mirror. Then suddenly, in the reflection, was my other half standing behind, looking at me and smiling, a long woman. She reached out her hand, and the mirror shook like a wave. I felt myself being sucked in, pulled my body back with all my might, but at that moment, a strong suction pulled me close to my face. Its face pressed against mine, only a layer of moisture away. I felt its cold breath on my face, then everything went dark. I suddenly saw myself standing in my room, but it felt like something was different. Everything around me was familiar, but cold. I looked into the mirror and saw myself smiling at a girl who didn't belong to me. I raised my hand, but the person in the mirror didn't follow. I understood that the thing was still there. It was just that I had been pushed out of the world, that it had completely taken over my body. Tried to write down everything in the notebook so that if someone read it, they would know the truth, that the person standing next to them might not be the person they used to know. I put the notebook close to the mirror, and in the night, I heard the rain. Then a faint gong sound from inside my eyes resounded like a laugh from the back of another world. If one day someone looked into the mirror for too long for a second, they would see me standing behind, looking back, and maybe I would have a chance, get out of this place again. But that means someone else will be stuck with me, because the mirror always needs someone new. After writing down everything that happened, I reminded myself not to look in the mirror anymore. But that was not easy to do. Every reflective surface could become its call. I tried to face the mirror, not facing the light, but even though it was only fleeting, I still saw my other side standing behind me, watching my every move, every day that passed. I felt myself weakening, as if something was draining all the energy from my body. Every night, the sound of rain gradually became a familiar melody. The sound of the rattling sound returned on the glass door and the metal surface of the washing machine. I did not dare to be alone anymore. I woke up all night, but the light only made my shadow in the mirror clearer. I saw it moving slowly, as if looking for a new way to get out. Began to see it appear, not only in the mirror, but also in other faces. Phone, screen, computer screen, even in the water on the table. I know every time I see it is a time it gets closer to me, but I don't know how to stop. I call Laura, but her phone number no longer exists. I go to find her old address, but her house is locked. The window is covered with a layer of dust, and on the glass is a small wet mark, like a human fingerprint. I know only my son and her in this game. That night, I turned off all the lights, only him to open the window and then look at the mirror on the wall. I sat there not looking directly, but I felt cold from the face behind me, as if someone was standing behind me. The knocking started, and then a voice rang out. I saw him, and then it was his turn to see May. Stood up and turned back to look at the mirror for the first time in many days. My eyes looked at it. Two images were the same as one, but I knew clearly the thing in the mirror was no longer me. Its eyes were deeper than her smile was wider. I felt a moment of suction. I came closer. It reached out and placed it on the mirror surface. I also raised my hand to it. A moment of coldness spread all over my body. Then everything turned white. When I opened my eyes, I saw I was standing in a much brighter room, but there was nothing familiar on the table. There was a large mirror, my whole body. I went closer to look in and saw my other side laughing at me. I didn't know which side I was on anymore. Who was the truth? Who was the shadow? I reached out to touch the mirror surface, and the person in it did the opposite. I saw a tear trail down from her eyes, like cold tears, and in that moment, I understood that it was time to repeat outside the real world. My replacement was sitting writing in the old book, but the words were the same as I had written before, but at the end of each word was a different word, saying, I saw him, then it was his turn to see me, and the voice outside the book kept falling like a nightmare to someone trapped in a cold mirror. After all, I began to realize the mirror was no longer simply a reflector of light. It was like a door between two worlds, the souls. Caught here, all became a part of it. I listened to the faint whispers that came from the mirror every night when it was dark. The sound of rain outside the window fell like a dark music that said it was the call of those who were not supposed to believe me. Every night I sat in the shadows. I could no longer tell which side I was on. Every time I looked into the cold mirror, I saw other faces appear, but mine was not among them. Half of them smiled coldly, but their eyes were full of pain, as if begging to be released. I saw Emma, David, and the others all standing behind the glass, like shadows. I realized I took all the pieces of mirror that I still kept into a wooden box and put it in the water. I hoped that the water would wash away all my sins. But when the last piece of mirror fell, I saw a trace of cold water, and from there, a mass of white gas rose up, forming a new human figure. They all turned their faces towards me. There was no sound, only a cold feeling that spread throughout my body. I ran away, but the dry laughter still echoed behind me. When I returned home, my whole body was covered in cold sweat. On my face, there was a small trace of water and a piece of mirror that was still feverish. I don't remember when I brought it back. On my face, the piece of mirror suddenly moved. I saw a picture. I reached out to touch it and felt the cold air spread all over my body. Then I was sucked into a space. I opened my eyes and saw myself standing in the middle of a long, endless corridor. On both sides were long rows of mirrors. In each mirror, there was a person standing there, looking at me. They all smiled at me at the same time, then spoke in unison. I saw him, then it was his turn to see me. I ran past those mirrors, but no matter how far I went, the mirrors still appeared before my eyes as if there was no smile at the end of the corridor. I saw a room with a faint yellow light shining through the crack of the door. When I opened the door, I saw a large mirror in the middle of the room, exactly like the mirror in the old hotel. Its face was as cold as water. I walked closer and saw my other self standing behind the mirror, staring at me. He didn't smile, he didn't speak, he just looked. Then he raised his hand to his face. The mirror's face was cold, and a drop of water fell. Falling like a drop of blood, knew that I had reached the point where I could no longer run if I did not finish this. Many others would be stuck to me. I put my hand on the mirror from the other side. The person in the mirror also put his hand on the mirror at the same time. The cold face turned to hot, then the whole sky turned white. When I opened my eyes, I saw myself standing in the middle of a blank room. No mirror, nothing but the sound of rain outside. The window, I felt my body was light, as if there was no one inside, but on the window's face there were still traces of water running down, as if someone had just touched it from the other side. I knew everything was just temporary, and the mirror would return to the next person who only had to look at it for a second too long. After leaving that room, I thought I was freed. I returned to a normal life in a new apartment without a mirror. Everything was simple. I tried to avoid the reflection, but it didn't seem as easy as I thought. Even without a mirror, I still felt like someone was looking at me from somewhere else. Every time I turned off the light, the first night in the new apartment, it was raining. I slept soundly, and in my dream, I heard a small laugh from afar. The laugh was loud and long, like a whisper. I woke up and looked around the room. There was only darkness and the sound of rain outside the window. But when I looked into the window, I saw a figure standing outside, looking at me. That figure moved slowly, without a clear line, but its eyes flashed in the night like 2 points of light. I ran to the window. I closed the door, but when I opened it, I clearly saw a smiling woman appear on the glass and then disappear. The next morning, I tried to discuss with my neighbor Kevin. He said that this building had a fire that happened a year ago and many people died, but the cause was unclear. I asked him if he had heard of any mirrors here. He looked at me for a while and then said that there was a room on the 3rd floor that was locked because everyone who went in there said they saw a reflection. I started to feel cold. That night, I opened the hallway to see the room. The light from the room door was shining yellow. I got closer and saw a streak like water running down the side of the door. I put my hand on it and it was cold. Then from the glass of the window opposite the room appeared a shadow of a person standing inside, looking at me. Laughing, I ran to the room. The sound of laughter continued to follow. Until I fell asleep, I woke up in the middle of the night. In the dark, I saw clearly on my window a small sound in the shape of a human hand, then a sound of tapping from the long glass, as if someone was tapping from outside. I walked closer, then saw a word appear on the glass. I saw it, then I backed up and bumped into the table, knocking over a cup of water. The sound made me startled, but when I looked again, the word on the glass had disappeared. Turned on all the lights in the house to turn on the camera battery. The next night, I turned the camera onto the window, hoping to catch something. I fell asleep until when I opened my eyes, it was already light. I opened the video to watch and saw in the frame a shadow of a person appear from behind the mirror, shine into the house, slowly walk to near my bed, then stop. Looking down, I fell asleep, then smiled slightly. Then all the lights, the screen flickered. Then I saw myself in the video, opening my eyes and looking at the camera, and all morning I knew that dream and reality were becoming bigger from that day. On every morning I looked in the window mirror, new water was flowing down, even though it wasn't raining, and in the last drop of water I saw clearly a face with eyes like a pair looking at me. Every time I ran to another place, the same thing was repeated. Different, just different faces, and everyone smiled at me. In silence I knew the mirror no longer needed to be seen to exist. It had become a part of me. After the long sleepless nights, I began to fear my own darkness, no longer needing a mirror or any reflective screen. Every time it rained, I heard the sound of knocking from the window softly. But what scared me was that this sound sounded like someone knocking, intending to knock 3 times and then again, and each time I heard a voice softly calling my name. Like a call for help or a call for me to come out. I lived on the top floor of the building. No one could stand outside the window, but every time I heard the sound of knocking, I still clearly saw a shadow of a person passing by the window. Every time I went to sleep, that shadow disappeared as if it had never existed. I tried to record the knocking again, but in the morning there was only the sound of rain and nothing else. I told myself that it was just a dream, but my heart could not rest. The night flew, the rain fell. I all came and sat waiting for the sound of knocking from the glass. After a while, it came again. This time, there was no longer a crack, but clear. As someone nearing the glass, I heard the sound of water running outside the window. The sound of knocking became a cold melody, then a soft voice rang out. I saw him, then it was his turn to see me. I stood up and ran out of the room. Then saw the floor wet, as if water was running in. I stood in front of the window, looking out. I saw nothing, only my shadow reflected on the glass. But when I looked closely, the eyes in the reflection were not mine. The person in the glass laughed and reached out to knock on the glass. From inside, I startled back, then sat down on the ground. My heart was beating continuously. I turned away, then saw in the middle of the room a long streak of water running, and on the water surface flashed the face of a person. I looked closely. It was Emma, my old friend. Mine disappeared many years ago. I heard a soft laugh from everywhere. The sound seemed to come from the wall. I ran into the bathroom to get a towel to wipe my face. But in the mirror of the bathroom, I clearly saw a person standing behind me. I turned around. There was no one, but in the mirror, that person was still standing there, motionless. His face was pale, no longer emotion. I was afraid to look down, but when I opened the mirror, that person had disappeared. Only the word appeared on the mirror. I saw him then. I was sweating, cold tears running down, but I didn't know if it was water or tears. The next morning, I told Kevin. He thought I had been missing for too long and suggested I take a few days off. I agreed, but the days off didn't help. The more I was alone, the more I heard the sound of knocking getting louder. I turned on the music to block out the sound, but the knocking still penetrated the music every night. I felt someone moving around in the house, light footsteps, but the long sound kept steady, like the sound of water dripping in the mirror. I had hid for a long time, but now everything can become a new mirror of it. Last night, I decided to close my eyes, turn off all the light, sit on the chair, wait for the sound of the gong. I just wanted to know what it was and why it wouldn't let me go. But I only heard a long, low laugh. Then from the edge of the mirror, A figure slowly appeared as if it was made of water. Then a cold hand touched the mirror from the other side. I only had time to hear a voice saying, "I saw him." Then everything I flew into the darkness the next morning. People said they saw my cousin open the curtain of the room. The floor was wet, as if it had been washed. And on the glass of the room there was a cold handprint. I was no longer there. But the neighbors said that every night when it rained, I still heard the sound of gongs coming from the room, and in the shadow of the mirror, I suddenly saw someone laughing very softly. After I disappeared, my apartment was locked, and no one dared to stay there anymore. But the neighbors on the floor below said that every time it rained, they heard a faint knocking sound coming from inside the apartment, as if someone was knocking on the windowsill, but no one dared to check. The people in the building started to move to other places, leaving only a few rooms that were still open until the middle of the night. But among them, my room was always there. After a few months, a new person came to rent the apartment. His name was Alan. He was a person who did not believe in the supernatural, so when he heard the story, he just laughed and said it was just nonsense. He moved in right on the first day of rain, and then he stayed in the cold and dark apartment. He opened the window to let the wind in, but every time the wind blew in, it brought with it the musty smell of steam and rain. On the glass surface, there was a long streak of water, as if someone had touched it before. The first night, he lying on the bed, listening to the rain falling on the roof, the steady sound made him fall asleep, but in the middle of the night he was awakened by a soft knocking sound from the window. At first he thought it was rain, but the knocking sound was long, like the sound of fingers tapping on the cold window, then stopped for a while, then started again. The cold man sat up straight until he looked out the window, but saw nothing but the reflection of his pale face, as if someone else was standing there. The next morning, he told the building guard. This person just looked at him and didn't say anything, just told him that someone had disappeared in this apartment before, and since then, every night he heard the knocking sound like that. Alan laughed in disbelief, but on the second night, it happened again. The only difference was this time, there was a soft laugh following the knocking sound. He decided to pick up the phone to record and put it near the door to the sound of rain in the night. But in the middle of the night, a voice rang out. I saw him then. Everything was quiet. He woke up in cold sweat, feeling someone standing close behind him. Turning around, no one but the cold glass had a trace of a hand. Then the word appeared, I saw him. Then it was his turn to see me. He was scared and held his hand for a long time, but the words written without a trace just spread out like glue on the wet surface. The next morning, he tried to wipe all the glass with chemicals, but at night, it reappeared like the last time. He saw in the glass a shadow of a person walking across the living room, shining from him to the street. Although no one was out there on Tuesday, he left, but while he was calling, he heard the sound of knocking starting again, this time not only from the window, but from the whole room, the whole house, and the whole screen, the phone, the sound of knocking everywhere at the same time. Then everything was quiet except for the sound of rain, then as light as a whisper. Then he opened the door and ran out, but when he looked into the glass of the building from the street, he clearly saw a person standing in his apartment, looking out, laughing, a cold laugh. After that, no one saw Alan any more. People said he left in the rain without taking anything, but the building cleaner said that the next morning, on the window of the apartment, there was a stream of water running down, and the owner looked like the person before I saw him, then said that from then on, the apartment was locked forever. Every time it rained, people passing by still heard the sound of the water gradually increasing, followed by the laugh as light as the sound of rain. After Alan disappeared, the building was abandoned for many years, until one day a girl named Sarah came to see the apartment on the top floor that was still intact. The The building manager warned that the room should not be used anymore because many people had disappeared there. But she laughed and said she did not believe in such stories. She just needed a quiet place to work. She signed a contract and moved in on the day of the rain. The first day, the apartment smelled musty but clean. The window was open. When it rained, it became light and comfortable. There was a simple table near the mirror. There was a desk and a small chair. I sat down at night and wrote. I fell asleep. When I woke up in the middle of the night, I saw that the window was still open and there was a water stain on the glass. I wiped it with my hand, but the stain did not go away but spread as if someone had just touched it. The next morning, I told the person who warned me the building. He smiled sadly, said was careful because this room had happened before bad things. Sarah thought he just wanted to scare her not to change the room, but on the second night, the rain came back more and heard a faint knocking sound from the door. The knocking sounded like someone knocking on the same thing 3 times, then stopped. That I remember the warnings, but still went to the door to look out, saw nothing. Only saw the shadow of himself in the mirror, but the face in the mirror was not the same at all. The face behind the glass and the smiling woman sweated back than the shadow of the person in the mirror did not back with the movement in a few seconds. Then suddenly everything disappeared, but on the glass there was a cold handprint. In the third night, she put down the phone to record the knocking sound. But in the middle of the night, when she opened her eyes, the phone turned off the screen. When she opened it to look clearly in the video, a shadow of a person appeared, standing behind the glass. I put my hand up and touched the glass and laughed. It was cold. All the lights were running. I called the alarm, but he didn't answer. In the hallway, I was silent. There was only the sound of rain and the sound of someone's footsteps behind me. I ran out of the building and didn't dare to turn around. But when I got to the door, it was locked. I looked through the glass of the building's floor and saw a figure standing in the upper floor of my apartment. I looked down and laughed clearly. All the lights were only rain and rain on the glass. The next morning, the apartment was covered in water running on the floor. The building manager found Sarah's phone on the table facing the door. The screen was active. I saw her. Then it was her turn to see me. No one knew where she went, only that from that day on, every time it rained, people passing by that building would see the light gradually increase in height, and a figure standing behind the glass as if waiting. Another person came to continue the tragic cycle of that cold mirror. After the building was abandoned for nearly 10 years, people decided to renovate it and turn it into a modern apartment complex with a new, luxurious name, and advertised it as the most livable place in the area. However, in the hearts of the residents, everyone knew that the building was the place where the hotel used to be. It was burned down with room 209, where all the reasons started. No one wanted to mention it anymore. However, the money and the curiosity of the people made people come back to see the strange things. On the opening day of the new building, it was raining like a cold place. The manager, a young man named Tom, invited a group of friends to camp in the building to film a vlog about the return of the haunted building. People who watched it live on the internet laughed and said that it was just a joke. But on the first night, everything turned into a real nightmare. A group of 4 people slept on a high floor near room 209, even though there was no number room, but the location is still there. They brought a camera battery and a small mirror to add to the mystery of the video. It was raining, and the sound of the wind outside the window made everything more gloomy, Tom said. that it was just a supporting effect for the video, but less than an hour then. Things started. Their camera began to record vague images from the mirror that was brought on the screen. A ghost figure appeared, walking past. Although no one was walking in front of the camera, the whole group thought it was a reflection, but when the mirror was pointed at the window, they clearly saw a shadow standing outside, looking in with pale eyes, smiling and sweating, then disappearing in a moment. Everything was covered in rain outside. The sky became as light as a whisper. A member of the group named Lily walked up to the mirror, touched it, and cried out because the face was cold. And on the light source of the mirror battery began to appear. Long dark streaks like water flowing from the top down the line appeared. I saw him then. The whole group panicked. Everyone ran out, then ran out to the hallway, but every door was glued together. Running down the stairs, I felt the cold coming from the floor, as if someone was climbing after Tom. Turned back to get the camera and saw on the mirror screen clearly the image of the group running, but there was another man behind also, dressed as if bloodless and eyes darkened. The scared camera played back, but no one. But when he reviewed the video later, he clearly saw that person was one of the people who disappeared before, named Alan, standing behind, laughing coldly. The group was scattered. People ran out of the building. People were stunned in the hallway, but when I woke up, only Tom was found. The man downstairs in a state of shock. Next to the broken mirror, the strong on the face, there was a blood clot early, and the master dreamed I saw him. Then it was his turn to see me. After that event, the apartment building was once again closed. No one dared to come near. People said every time it rained, the sound of laughter rang out from the sky, and the light from the old window shone down, even though it was replaced with new glasses. But on the face there were still dark marks down, as if someone was still standing in the room, looking out, waiting for a new person to enter the next cycle. After the incident of Tom's group, the building was closed again. People set up a security camera and put up a fence around it. However, on rainy nights, people still reported seeing a light rising and falling, as if someone was coming inside. Even though no one was there, the police checked many times but found nothing. They only saw the window slightly open, and on the glass surface there was a long dark mark like frozen water. People in the area began to call the building the last house. The road had no end. After a year, a group of young people who had just arrived in the area to make a short film about the supernatural heard about the building being abandoned and wanted to go in and film a part of the story. Tom's mirror had disappeared, but his old videos were leaked online and became a hot topic. The group of young people wanted to stay in the building for a night to find out the truth. They went in. The rain came down to the room on the upper floor. Even though it was no longer room number 209, everything was the same as before. When we arrived at the room, it was cold and quiet. Everyone turned on the camera and closed the window, but when they opened it, they saw a clear streak of water running down from the glass, and from there, a trace of a shadow appeared from outside. A member named Mark brought the camera back to the door and turned it back on. And on the screen, a white woman's face clearly appeared. A cold smile appeared, then all the power was turned off. The camera stopped in the middle of the dark space. Mark was the person closest to the window. He was stuck forward. There was a strong suction. He pressed against the glass for a moment. The light turned on, but he could not see him. Only a large streak of water on the glass and down to the floor. The group ran out into the hallway, but the main door of the room was locked. Everyone ran towards the stairs, but they could not see who. Felt someone walking behind them. The sound of wet footsteps on the floor became clearer when it rained, and then turned off. The camera was captured, but the last image was just a long corridor with a white figure walking. slowly towards the camera, and then all the lights were turned off. The next morning, people discovered that the door of the building had been opened. Every member of the group had disappeared, leaving only a camera in the middle of the room. Its surface was wet, as if it had been washed clean. When checked, the camera only had a short video showing a window in the rain and a voice faintly heard. I saw him, and then he saw me, and then everything was quiet since then. No one dared to go near the building anymore. Every time it rained, people passing by that road always saw a faint light coming from high up, but it was unclear what the light source was. Experienced people in the area said that that is the reason why the mirror still exists, even though it has been torn to pieces. Every time the water falls on the glass, it opens a door between two worlds so that the souls that are tied can return to the heart of the new person to replace them. Someone said that one rainy night, they saw a woman standing by the window, smiling very lightly, then disappearing into the darkness. Since then, no one has seen the light from the building anymore. But every night, on the glass doors of nearby buildings, there are water stains running down like a person's hand touching the other side of the glass. As time passed, the old building became a haunted place, and people in the town avoided going there at night, especially on rainy days when the rain became a strange sound. People said that if you listen carefully in the rain, you can distinguish a faint sound like someone is knocking on the glass, and a voice saying, "I saw you," and every time it happens, a person in the town will disappear. A young reporter named Alex came to the town to make a documentary about haunted traditions. He did not believe in the supernatural and wanted to find the truth behind the stories about the haunted house. He stayed in a nearby house to film it. But on rainy nights, the reaction of the people around him was strange. Anyone who heard him mention the building would be silent or leave. He became even more frightened. Thursday to sky started to rain. He brought the camera and walked around the building area. Looking from afar, he saw the highest floor had a window with a yellow light shining out, as if the building had been cut off. He thought it was just the light from the building next door reflecting it. But when he got closer, he realized that the light was really shining from inside the building. A cold wind blew past his body, making him shiver. He turned the camera to point towards the window. On the screen clearly appeared a white figure looking out. His eyes were dark. He couldn't see the line of sight clearly, but he felt very real. He ran into the building, turned on the camera to shine on the entire room below. He only saw a desolate, dusty place. But with each step he took to the upper floor, he heard the sound of water dripping steadily from somewhere in a faint sound, as if someone was knocking on the glass. When I got closer, he saw the door to room 209 was open in my room. Only the light from the glasses he approached, then felt the air was hot and cold. He lifted the camera up to turn and saw on the screen the glasses slowly appeared. The word "I saw him." Then he stepped back. The sound stopped, but a voice rang out behind him saying it was his turn to see me. He turned back and saw no one, but the glasses started to freeze. White cold, he felt a slight suction of people near the glasses. Someone's eyes appeared in the white mist. Then all the light sources were out in the hallway. People were wet water on the floor. There was a stream of water down from the glasses, ran out into the rain and kept moving. When looking up at the building, he saw the window high up the light. He thought it was all just an illusion, but when he reviewed the video in the hotel, he clearly saw in the last frame when he turned back, there was a person standing behind his back, smiled very slightly, and then all the screens turned on. His movie was never released. They said he disappeared after a few days. The hotel he was in, the room was opened, and on the glass there was a watermark running down like someone else's. Handprint another person, revealed clearly. I saw him, then it was his turn to see me. From then on, everyone believed the origin of the building had gone beyond the surface and was expanding to wherever anyone looked into the glass for more than a second. After Alex disappeared, the house was completely sealed off. A high fence was put around it, and no one was allowed near it, but the people inside knew that the curse had escaped from its old window in the rainy nights. People heard a soft knocking sound from their window even though there was no one outside, but when they opened the door, they saw only cold glass and a long wet mark on the glass like a human hand. Everyone told each other not to look into the glass. After midnight, a woman named Maria, who lived nearby, was the first to say she saw something in her window that night. I couldn't sleep because of the sound of running water. I kept asking if I heard a soft knocking sound from the living room, and from the window a ghost appeared. I saw something then. It was my turn to see. I stood up and started to catch everyone disappear. But from then on, I saw something. It was raining in the house. There was a long streak of water running down from the glass. Maria called her friend James to come over because she didn't want to be alone. The two people opened all the doors, but in the middle of the night, the knocking came again, this time clearer and longer. James opened his eyes and saw the reflection on the glass was both of them. But the person in the glass didn't move, but stood still, his eyes behind him, then slowly raised his hand to touch the other side of the glass. James jerked himself and jumped back. Then a cold wind passed, and a drop of cold water fell down the glass, making a small sound like a laugh in the dark. The two of them ran outside. But before they could open the door, all the light went out, and in the darkness they saw a shadow of a person standing in the middle of the room, faceless, only the pale eyes glowing. The next morning, the neighbors didn't see Maria and James anymore. Only the door of their house was covered in water running on the floor. On the glass there were prints of human hands, and the owner dreamed that I saw them then. The person in the house said that every time it rained, someone else heard the sound of gong from inside his house, even though everyone was frozen. The old people in the house believed that it was the revenge of the souls trapped in the mirror. They were looking for someone to replace their position every time someone looked at the mirror for more than a second. They were chosen. The gong was just a call before it. REPEATEDA. Young man named Michael wanted to make money by making videos about the legend. He bought a camera close to his house window on a rainy night to record the gong, but when he checked the video the next morning, he saw on the screen a ghost figure standing outside, looking at him. The eyes were dark and unclear. The internet line, he was scared and deleted the video, but that day when he looked in the bedroom, he saw clearly the face of the person in the video behind me, and then all the lights went out. No one saw Michael anymore, but others said, I saw a light in his house even though he wasn't there, and on the windowsill there was a clear sign. I saw him, and then he saw me. The rain kept on going like a lullaby of restless souls. The next one replaced the old one, and the new circle was a revenge of those who were trapped on the other side of the cold mirror. Time passed, and the old building was demolished, and a new building was built on its foundation. People said that nothing remained of the building. It was completely destroyed. But the old people in the village did not believe it. They said that every time it rained, they could still hear the sound of someone knocking from under the ground. If they stood in the same position as the apartment, they would hear the sound more clearly, as if someone was knocking from below the ground and shouting. They could see him. All the young people just laughed and considered it a fairy tale. But later, a group of construction workers said that while they were digging the new building, they found many pieces of glass on the surface of the building. The water had frozen into a layer of glass. every time they touched it, they felt as cold as ice. A worker named David said he saw a woman's face in the mirror, but then everyone disappeared. No one believed him until he got into a strange accident on the construction site. The school had no visible marks, only a long dark mark on the glass surface. Like a human handprint, new building was completed faster than expected and was opened for sale with a bright new name. The young home buyers were happy on the opening day. The rain was light. The sound of rain was steady on the glass, making the atmosphere cool and peaceful. However, when the first person moved in, he told me that when he turned off the lights, he saw a shadow of a person standing on the glass surface next to the electricity room, looking straight at him. His eyes were cold, not glowing, only glowing in the night. He opened his eyes many times, still feeling that after a few days, that person began to feel tired, feeling that someone was following him in his own house. On Thursday night, he set up a camera to record it, and the next morning, when he watched the video, he clearly saw in the mirror another person standing behind him, laughing very softly. Then all the lights were turned off. But at that moment, no one saw him anymore. Only a girl. The glass turned into a white mist, and on it was a trace of water running down, as if someone had just touched it. The new building manager couldn't explain anything, only saying that it was the effect of the heat. But the people living on the upper floors all heard a soft knocking sound from the glass when it rained, and a long, indistinct laugh every night became a lullaby for the young people who had just arrived in the building. Reporter from the local newspaper came to write an article about the new building. He was given old videos from the time of Tom and Alex. He watched them in silence and then said that sometimes what people thought was the end was just the beginning of another cycle. He didn't believe in ghosts, but when he left, it was starting to rain. He stopped in the street and looked up at the new tall building. He saw on the upper floor a bright window and a figure standing there looking down with a very light smile. He turned away, but in the reflection of the car's mirror when the car passed, he clearly saw a person sitting in the back seat with a smile on his face. Then, all the light and rain then covered his eyes. There was nothing left but a faint sound echoing in my head. I saw him then. It was his turn to see me, like a repetition of all the people who had disappeared. Their faces were just windows, and people were just people who would continue to reveal themselves. Since then, everyone has been trying to pass that building on rainy days, but in the reflection of the surrounding glass windows, I still see the silhouettes of people standing silently with a smile on their faces, as if they would never give up, and the promise of the mirror still continues to exist in every reflection of this world.